And then to the assumption side of things, again, to go back to why are there not more great companies? If you think about the board of directors and the management team, now I've sat in endless management team meetings over decades. And one of the most striking things that I've observed is how infrequently the management team describes explicitly its assumptions about its business. Who are our customers? What's the value proposition we're going to? What are the embedded assumptions underneath that? What are the embedded assumptions behind how we're going to actually deliver that product, or about the financial model related to it? And so what ends up happening is they proceed blithely along, and all these assumptions are sitting there, oftentimes unarticulated, and then there's this, oh my God, something's wrong. And it's because they didn't call out and go out and test and validate an assumption they should have done when it would have been cheaper, faster, easier earlier in their life. And so, I've thought long and hard about the board of directors, investors, management team governance issue. And one of the things that I've never heard anybody actually say this, and so this is one of my things I push a lot more now, and that is that management teams should do that explicit calling out of assumptions and then regular testing of. Investors, before they ever put a dime into a company, they put together an investment memo for their partners. And that investment memo has a section that calls out the assumptions of what has to be true for this to be a successful, high IRR kind of deal. They almost never share that with the company. I'm going to suggest that what they ought to do is they ought to blend those two sets of assumptions, force management to do it, share it from the investors, and turn that combination document into a regular quarterly board meeting review. Which assumptions did you, the management team, review and make progress on in the last months? Did you validate, since our last meeting, did you validate anything? Did you confirm something is wrong and we need to make changes? Now, think about that. So I don't want to rush past that conclusion. That would be a really novel and different habit to have at a board meeting level. And what it does psychologically that is incredibly important is, governance requires that a board not run a company. They're not supposed to. By definition, they're not going to know everything. And so what ends up happening, because management team doesn't like to deliver bad or discouraging news, the good news is just around the corner. We'll wait to tell them that we've recovered from this challenge once it's behind us. All those sort of natural human behaviors. But if you have those kind of assumptions and review sections during at least part of the meeting of a board meeting, what you're doing is you're going beyond the PowerPoint that's just sort of, hey, we've got this, here's this, here's that activity and this activity. And what you're doing is you're sharing your tangible learnings in the moment with the board. And therefore you all can assess, is this going the way we think it should be going? And if you're catching it by definition sooner, which means you can act on it without severe consequences potentially. And then what that translates into is you just overcome this board governance challenge, which is instead of having to tell the board that it really bombed, you've been bringing them along on the journey. And it's the journey that then allows you to address issues real time. And I think that is a huge part of how companies could help build more great companies.